Commerce, and I am going to be turning the floor over to Dr. Deb in just a second. But I first wanted to first welcome everybody, and then second also to let everybody know very briefly kind of how we got here today, and then where we are going from here. So as many of you can imagine, it's very hard for us nowadays to have a conversation with a business owner, particularly a small and medium-sized business owner, without having the topic of supply chains and the supply chain crisis come up. So we really wanted to do two things organizationally. The first is with our partners at the Real Coalition and the Santa Clara County Chamber Coalition and Cal Chamber, we are going to be engaged in a number of advocacy efforts at the state and local level to try to alleviate a number of the supply chain issues that are occurring. As you may hear today, a lot of this is not going to happen in the immediate term, but certainly there are changes that the governor and the state and local leadership can take to alleviate some of these. So that is one thing we organizationally are going to be doing. The other is how we got here today, which is a number of you have brought to us the questions, not just about how we can fix this problem in the future, how we can be a part of that solution in the future, but also how you as business owners and business leaders can help alleviate the current situation that you are in. So we wanted to host today's webinar to engage in that conversation. We expect this to kind of be an informal conversation, but also informative. And there's going to be ample time for a Q&A where the time is really going to belong to you as members. I do want to let everybody know, you heard a little earlier, this is being recorded. We had about 100 individuals RSVP for this morning, clearly a lot of interest in this topic, but the Chamber has many hundred members and many were not able to make it, so we wanted to record this so that we can make this available to them. Obviously, if anybody is not comfortable with that, we just want to make you aware of that, but the meeting is being recorded. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our speaker today. I am not going to do a lengthy biography. I believe he will cover this in a second. But Dr. Deb Bhattacharjee has joined us this morning. He is a partner at Deloitte Consulting, who is a principal at Deloitte Consulting. I'm sorry, a chamber member, and thank you for their help in putting this together. And the only part of his biography that I will say, and the reason why this initial conversation took place was that Dr. Bhattacharjee is an advisory board member for the School of Supply Chain Management at Santa Clara University, one of our great local universities. So with that, Deb, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. And thank you so much on behalf of our members for joining us today. And we very much look forward to this conversation.
Sorry, I was mute. So thanks very much. Let me kind of, I'm a consultant, so I can't do anything but without a PowerPoint. So let me kind of share my screen so that you guys, I can talk you through a few things that I intended today. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, you look
okay,
good.
Got it. So before I begin, very brief, I plan to talk about for 20-25 minutes and then really open up for Q&A. I think that's where most of the conversation should take place. A little bit of who I am. We call it a partner principal because partners are people with a CPA and not non-CPAs are principals. In Deloitte Consulting for the last 8 years. I'm an immigrant from India. I was paid to come to study in this country, and I lived in West Lafayette, Indiana, at Purdue, and I did my PhD there. And I moved to the Bay Area, and after having a small stint in Dallas, Texas, for 1 year, and then I moved to San Jose in 1998, and since not left. So I've served around 100 countries in the US for the last, I would say, 23 years. And my background is I did my undergrad in civil engineering, and then after that I did work in I did work in construction, and for 4 years. I also happened to work in a port, which is interesting now that the seaport and LA port everybody talks about. I worked in a port for 2.5 years. And so currently serve as a Santa Clara University, the Masters in Program, Supply Chain Program Advisory Board as well. But really, I thought I structured the conversation into three topics. One is some very basics of supply chain. I know those could be very rudimentary for some. I beg my apology before that. But I think I would like to highlight a few well-known but facts that people should know. Then really go into stuff like what helps and what does not help. What are the things that actually could aggravate your problems more? And then talk about how to really fight those strategies. Being in a San Jose and in this Bay Area, there are so many high-tech companies. In a way, the supply chain disruption is not new to high-tech the world at all. In fact, so this is the kind of a representative picture of a supply chain. So let me kind of give you a little bit of what I'm trying to say. So on the right-hand side, you see the consumers who actually get served. And then on the left-hand side, as you move it to suppliers, to manufacturing, to distributors, retailers, and consumers. Now, that's a very normal cycle. And one thing that is interesting is, as you see the pattern here, a little bit of change in the demand cycle gets multiplied at every step it goes. And this is the concept, and the whole pictorial and the concept and the math behind it was actually explained by Professor Hao Lee at Stanford back in 1997. He published his seminal paper on a topic called bullwhip effect. So that word was coined by him and his students, and it actually took over the world. I mean, actually everybody talks about bullwhip effect now. So the idea is very simple. The idea is that so everything is really connected in a chain, and if any point of time there is a disruption in the chain, you have a problem. Now there are three kinds of problems which is happening today, which is because of COVID, or even before COVID. If you have seen the life long enough, I mean, there are a lot of things happen over the time. In Japan, problems, what happened in 2013, I believe, in Thailand, there was a big Seagate actually lost a lot of damage in Seagate plants. What is happening in Taiwan now? I mean, there are a lot of disruptions that are much more in a pocketed way, a smaller place. Either earthquakes or floods, but in a smaller place that causes disruption, and that is usually causes a supply disruption, which is number three. Number two is actually the longer lead time. So it could be caused by like exactly what is happening in LA seaport today, right? So at lead time, a product from Shanghai to Chicago used to take 40 days. Now it is taking 80 days, twice of that time, and that's a huge disruption. So that causes a lot of problems with the lead time. So that's a lead time disruption. Now, the third disruption, which is number one, is the demand fluctuation. So, and think about is a craze about the bathroom tissue rolls, or in the third world war, it happened actually more in some either gasoline or kerosene, or any kind of demand, like the housing demand that actually is going to the roof. So that demand fluctuation is a very common problem that we see, right? So these are the most common three things that actually attacks causes disruption in supply chain. The demand fluctuation could be remember in probably 15 years back. So there was in the Christmas, we actually everything got people, we could not buy any for our kids. So demand fluctuation is one. Longer lead time is a problem, and thirdly is supply disruption. So these three are the most common problems that you see in the supply chain. Now, it so happened that in the COVID, all three of these things came at the same time, and that actually caused the biggest problem that we have ever seen in the world, right? So last 18 months, as I told that, anything, it has been anything but normal. I think the problem came from all directions. Number one, that demand pattern has not been predictable at all. It's completely unpredictable. In fact, if you go back go back in time in March, April timeframe, people stopped consumption in a way, right? And before they figured out, okay, I have to work from home, so I need to buy my furnitures. Actually, we need to buy more gadgets, more, the display units. So demand pattern has been extremely unpredictable. It first went down and then came back up. Things are very uncertain, so everyone is playing very safe, right? When you don't know what your life looks like in tomorrow, next week, next day, next month, you tend to actually do it in a way which is very short-term focused, not medium or long-term focused, and that causes the whole bathroom tissue roll reaction of people hoarding the tissue in your garage was a very unique. Everybody knew that this is easy. It's a cheap item, will be there enough, but people are hoarding, so that people play safe. It is also a global problem. It's not local. Unlike the Thailand flood or Japan tsunamis, these actually have happened everywhere. Every country actually has been impacted, less or more. I mean, and it's not a first world, third world problem. It happened everywhere. There have been supply challenges and disruptions in that came from China or other countries. And the logistics has been a huge challenge, a lead time challenge. That could be, and so these were the challenges part. But what really caused more of it? If you look at in time, if you go back in 20, 30 years time, people actually people used to procure things from close by countries or alternate sources. But more and more people actually found a way to get, because the market demanded cheaper price and your supply chain had to be cost effective. So people actually found the cheapest way to get things done. And that is always very far from you and long lead time. So long transportation lead time is practically the de facto new standard of any supply chain. The second, this is what Japanese told us long time back, just-in-time inventory. And inventory costs money, everybody knows that, and people have fallen in love with no inventory. People try to have as little as inventory you have, and therefore what happens is, at any point of time, any problem you have in your supply chain, you are out of stock. And the third thing is, given that it's actually, people, you have a volume contract, it's a larger contract, you get a better price, people tend to have gone towards single source, right? As one single source. If that source cannot give you the supply, you have no other option. Then you are out of luck. So, so not only there was a problem for all 5 directions, there was a demand problem, supply problem, logistics problem, unknown certainty, uncertain problem. It also got accentuated by the way people have designed their supply chain today. I will go through this, and of course I ask you to ask questions, but if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask questions. So how do you fight this? That's the main problem, right? I mean, the good news is that the high-tech companies have been doing it for a long time. The high-tech companies are the first ones that have outsourced all their manufacturing to the or most of the manufacturing in the East. And so there's a lot of knowledge as well as a lot of expertise happens to be in the Bay Area, but we have a lot of expertise. So it will continue, it will give us, but this is first of all, this is nothing new. The magnitude is very new, but of the supply chain disruptions are not new at all. The biggest problem though is there is no single silver bullet you can get to solve your problems. And the reason is, like every child is different, every human is being different, every supply chain is different. So you need to almost look at your supply chain from a different angle. So analyze it, devise your own strategy and create an approach. So I'm going to take you through that, what are the strategies and what works for you. So number one, always start with the customer. Try to find who do you serve, how do they make decisions, and are they price sensitive? If they are not price sensitive, for example, the housing market in the Bay Area, you are in good shape. I mean, you can jack up the price by 10% and nobody blinks if people keep on buying homes. And the second question is, can they live without you? If they can't live without you, I mean, you are in great shape. So knowing the customer is the first step. Second, analyze your product. I mean, do you want to be the product differentiation or do you want to be a service differentiation? Sometimes a product could be the best product, like Zoom, right? It's one of the best products and you cannot, the whole world probably cannot live without it, right? And what is your product portfolio? Is it broad in narrow? For other words, like think about the food example, like In-N-Out Burger. When my kids come from out of state, the first thing we go from the airport is to get an In-N-Out Burger. Think about a brand and because the product portfolio is the three kinds of In-N-Out Burger you can get, right? So there's not broad, is very focused, and that helps. Do you have a competitive product portfolio, and is it discretionary? That is beautiful. So can people live without your dinner rolls or your tissue rolls? No, they cannot. So so there are some, this is absolutely a necessity for you. So the last two are evaluate your business partners, whether you're a single source or alternate source. Is it a low cost provider, or is a service differentiation? For example, some people could say, I can give you a little bit of 20 plus minus 20% contract volume versus probably I'll take a 1%, 2% is more price. And is it long-term relationship you're trying to build, or is it transactional? So make sure your business partners are actually, that relationship is understood. And lastly, define a very clear strategy for yourself. Do you want to be a cost leader? In other words, do you want to devise a strategy which is the lowest cost, or do you want to have a service differentiation or something in between, right? I mean, or do you want to target for a specific market or group or everyone? So knowing this basic stuff tremendously helps your defining a strategy for yourself. Let me kind of tell you what are the things that we have seen the simple strategies that work, and I'll take you through some short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies. Number one, my first thing is absolutely don't panic, because we all will look through it and everything will be fine. But the strategies that have worked in the short term is, we all know that inventory costs money, but this is the time you would like to have some inventory, especially if it is non-perishable. If it is perishable, you probably are out of luck. But if it is non-perishable, you think about how do you have a safety stock or higher safety stock. The second real option, and this is something the high-tech industry knew for a very long time, find the alternate source. You absolutely find, so for example, 80% should come from China, very far, cost leader, cost effective, but have other 20% at a higher price somewhere close by. So something happens, you can actually go and survive for a little while. So find the alternate source, not only the different country, but it could be even in the different countries, but far, right? So, but you can devise, always have an alternative approach to critical items. The third thing is, think about when you are devising your supply chain, think about the distance. Geographically closer to consumption is important. You could bring blueberry from Mexico, or you can blueberry from Atlanta, right? So there are some examples you can see that transportation lead time, how it is coming. Is it by air, or air is very rare, but by land or sea is important. So think about the transportation lead time. And lastly, absolutely collaborate with your business partners more often, and information is absolutely key. And the reason being, more and more you are going to be dependent on your business partners, because they need to help you, they need to collaborate with you. Information is key, and there are really smart ways to communicate with them. Again, I mean, driving some examples from high-tech companies, they have been the leading provider of this, right? I mean, they have been the ones, the first, front runner in this. They have been sharing their, lead time, their demand, everything they share with their partners, so that they know how to serve them well. So having a platform where you can share data with your partners and information sharing is paramount, especially given that you are going to be more dependent on on suppliers. Again, it all depends on what you do, what service you provide. But if you have a product or a service where you depend on business partners, knowing the business partners, understanding them, and building a longer term relationship is paramount. So I actually have I did not want to bore you with your long presentation, so I actually have a shorter one. I thought that it'll be good for us to, maybe take some questions and any other things that you want to know, and any questions you have.
Excellent. Deb, thank you so much for the presentation, for the practical application, and for all of that incredibly useful information. Very much appreciate that. And thank you everybody for attending this morning. As I put in the chat, if anybody has a question, let me know. I already got a couple, and we'll get to those in order. Deb, if it's all right with you, though, I would like to maybe ask the first question, just about kind of the concluding remarks about, don't panic, and we'll live through this together. I know in the media, I think, I know we have, and I think a number of the folks on the call have read this prediction that these problems are going to persist for a little while. And I guess my question would be, could you give us a sense of how people that work in the supply chain consistently make those estimations? And what are some of the things that you might say we could look for to say that would speed that estimate up? Because I know they're saying 2023 or beyond. How do they make those estimations? And what are some of the things that folks track in that space to look for that?
So when you say the supply chain problems will be there for a while, I would say that, I think the immediate problems should be, one of the things, I think the Supply Chain Management, Institute of Supply Chain Management, they do, track inventory in the system and the sales in the system. So I would say one of the most important things is to know whether you are actually having in your environment is the semiconductor is a different space, but if you take semiconductor out of the process, are you actually having the lead time is a problem? First thing is lead time. Is your supplier able to give you the product within the lead time? So that's the first thing you should look at. The second thing you should look at is really that, and that is one thing you can actually go and fight against by building some buffer inventory. So I would say that given if the lead time is, say, for example, lead time is 20 days, and you know that it could go, plus minus 5 days. So you could define a buffer in a way that you are covering for that, right? So that you don't run out of that. So that's what my first idea. The second thing is, when this kind of madness happened, the one very clear thing is that, people tend to actually react. The consumers tend to react in an irrational way, right? And so one thing you can do is to really temper the demand pattern itself. So essentially, if there is in our business, we know that if there's too much of demand, we'll say, we are going to incentivize you if you start the project 3 months from now, right? Or in other words, in a house construction business, right? You could say, like, look, I'm all ready to go. I'm willing to contract, but if you're willing to go by another 6 months, I'll give you a 2%, discount. You'll be surprised how many people do that. So really flattening the demand curve actually solves the most of the problem. So if you have a control on the demand side, I would say that's the easiest way to solve. Supply side, the best way to solve is to have some buffer stock. There are some, I think the LA airport problem seaport problem has been solved with a new mandate that it's going to work for 24 hours a day. I think it'll work its way out. Just because the port people are working for 24 hours doesn't mean that everything else is working 24 hours. Yeah. But it'll get solved. But I would say that lead time predictability is the number one problem. Then again, and if your supplier is able to keep you the promise date, that's the other one. So lead time and supplier promises are the key things.
Excellent. No, thank you for that. That brings a lot of clarity there. I will go first. Going to just take them in order again. First question, John Horner. John, you had a question.
Oh, good to see you, Derek, and thanks. Yes, scarcity often means pricing power. And some of the businesses I know well, while moaning and groaning about supply chains, are having their highest profitability ever while sitting on low inventory levels. And it's almost humble bragging. So I wonder your thoughts as a consultant on that. You know, should people, well, my thing, stop wringing your hands so much, do what you need to do, but also enjoy that you're piling up cash like you've never had the chance to before. Are you seeing that in your other businesses?
Absolutely, John. I think that's you have put a nail on the head. I mean, scarcity means that's an opportunity for you to ask for a price that people are willing to pay. I mean, that's the housing market is probably the best market for that. Housing market. I mean, you will see that for the next. This is something we are hearing more and more. It's a public information, so I'm not sharing anything that you don't know. Semiconductor business is going through an enormous boom. In the next 1 to 2 years, very soon, you will find that all electronics product will become expensive because all chips are becoming expensive, and everybody will pass on that extra money. And a lot of people will make money in this process, but it will get multiplied. So in other words, if the chip went up by say 10% in one side, maybe it's actually not much money, maybe $10. But by the time you end up paying, you'll probably end up paying $100. So because it did multiplied by everyone. So price, and that's the beauty of kind of a open market and capitalistic society, right? The price and price will be fluctuating, going up and down based on the demand supply gap. That's always happens. That's the reality. You can't. I mean, the other option, of course, is the government control that none of us want. So that's actually something. Yeah, I mean, we have seen the whole government control things, that how it runs. So I would say. That those are fundamentals that will work its way out. When there is a scarcity, there'll be more price, and as the lumber is a fantastic example. If you look at the lumber, what happened now, the lumber has again come down. So it'll be. I mean, the market will play itself out. The same thing will happen in the real estate market too.
A historical fun fact: I was a child when then Republican President Gerald Ford implemented. Whip inflation now. And for a time in the US, we had a national law that said nobody could change their price or their paycheck.
I came from India, where gas prices used to be actually controlled by the government. So all the stuff going on, there was the oil price goes up and down, as you all know, every day, the crude oil. And then of course, the Indian rupee will fluctuate against US dollars. So if you all pass it on to the consumers, imagine the amount of whiplash it'll have. So government says, no, we are going to have this price and we'll absorb the shock. So, well, it only lasted so long. Now it's open.
Thank you for that, John. Thanks for the question. The floor is open. The chat is not no line in the chat, so the floor is open. I think, Deb, if it's all right with you, if people just want to take themselves off mute and go ahead and ask their questions.
100%, yeah.
All right.
Hi, Deb. It's Oz. So I have a question. You just mentioned something about the mandatory in LA port. So what is exactly the mandatory is about? Like, what's the difference from the past and now?
I think the presidential order that came in, I think it came from Biden last week, that LA airport only used to work in a specific time till I think 9 to 5 or 7 to 5 sometime. Now it is working 24 hours a day just to work the backlog, because the number of ships that are waiting to, I mean, just to give you an idea, in LA seaport, your cargo ship could come in and not wait at all and go and put in all the stuff it has to do and head out. Now it has to wait for like 10, 20 days just to get the berth. So imagine the amount of backlog it is creating. So it has a cascading effect everywhere. The ships are waiting. The whole place is full of containers. The containers truck are traffic jammed. It is just that's causing a lot of problems that you see.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Hi, this is Kat Savengros. I get to work at Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, where we're distributing groceries to about 450,000 people a month right now. And of course, we rely on truck drivers to do that. We have about 36 trucks in our fleet. And of course, we contract with other truck drivers. For a while, we've been limiting, how far away we'll get food or donations of food because of the overland freight shortage. But I read that there was like transportation authorities were predicting a shortage of about 50,000 truck drivers a year pre-pandemic. And now they're looking at about 150,000 of shortage of need for truck drivers. Why were we already seeing the shortage before this? That was already expected. And it just surprised me that, oh yeah, we were already expecting this to be a high demand thing. Of course, it was exacerbated by the pandemic. Thank you.
Yeah. Kat, I could just give you some ideas. I mean, I listen to NPR quite a bit because of COVID and now with all this, because in the evenings that's all we can do. But what I at least could sense is there are two forces working, side by side. Number one, because of COVID, I think a lot of truck truck drivers who, they actually they had to stay home and all this stuff. And a lot of people figured out that, hey, there could be better ways to make money than truck driving. So I think there's a lot of people going back in finding other sources of income. I think that the number of pool of truck drivers is reducing. The second thing is that I also think that the total number of the demand for truck drivers overall in others, in the industry itself is probably, it's getting much and much higher because of the COVID. Now that enormous amount of good needs to move, that spike in demand may have taken some of the people away from the overall pool. But I do not know that. I can find out more about it and let you know. But I know for sure that a lot of truck drivers are saying, you know what, this was a good way to get out of it. And it's thirdly, I mean, I would say truck driving as an industry, they're not attracting a lot of new people. And you know that this very well, probably, that the whole truck driving, this is not a profession a lot of people are trying to get to. So that whole resource pool is a declining resource pool to begin with. And those are the problems that I at least hear. One thing that I would say, one thing I would say in truck driving though, I don't know when it will happen, but it's happening faster than I would imagine, or everybody imagined. The automated truck driving, because today, if you look at the truck driving, there are a lot of very specific laws that how long you can drive trucks. Those things will be, I think, will be relaxed as you go into more of automated vehicles. I know Google is actually doing a lot of testing Waymo in Dallas, Texas. We work with them. So PACCAR is doing it, Tesla is doing it. So I think that truck driving, that freight carrying, that block will see enormous amount of, I would say, innovations in the next 10 years. Now, that doesn't solve your problem in the next 2 years, but it probably will get more and more automated, and you will see much more innovation like what we saw in the handheld device industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's so interesting because, like you said, it was declining before that, and I just put in the chat some information I had read about it. It's just too bad we don't have like, I don't know, a rail system that wouldn't require as many drivers. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, the other thing is that the truck driving is an interesting area because it is unionized truck driving. There are a lot of people from other countries like Mexico specifically would like to drive. There's a lot of complexity on that topic on the union side that could be sorted out to solve the problem though. Yeah, railroad is a difficult problem to solve. The country that has got most advanced railway systems, which is Japan, out of 13 different rail companies, because they are all different rail companies, only one makes money, other 12 loses money. So it has not been proven globally that rail companies as a private institute can make money. So that's a bigger problem, more of an economical problem to solve, but it's a very much like public transportation. So it's not an easy problem.
All right, floor is still open for any further questions.
I'll ask another then, if no one else is going. This is John. The semiconductor industry, which, near and dear to our heart here, it's what brought me to the Valley in 1984. And there's talks about this CHIPS initiative at the federal level. I think of all the years when the United States said, oh, we're not going to have industrial policy, that's a bad thing. But, do we need to be rethinking that? And should we be having targeted investment to rebuild our semiconductor industry? I think of TSMC in Taiwan and the fact that China's not so happy about Taiwan being independent. It's like, wow, this disruption we're in the middle of now, maybe a precursor of something worse. So what are your thoughts, particularly on the semiconductor industry and what makes sense there?
So good question. I work with many semiconductor companies, so in the valleys, and outside. So Austin is another place, right? So there, in fact, I was in a call with a semi company just now before. So I feel that automotive industry is, as it declines or not declines, it is going to change its color, right? So IC engine will become more converted into EV vehicles. US will get more and more. I would say it'll gain back a lot of its manufacturing, that it lost. So that has to come back. Fabs are getting built, $50 billion that everybody knows about that, our Congress has approved. On the top of that, there are at least like Intel is building fab, TSMC is building fab, Micron is building fab. Everybody is building fab now in the US market. So the problem we'll have is a different one, the talent war. Most of our talent pool actually has moved into software, and people are, because working in the shop floor is hard, working in manufacturing is hard, and people have shied away from it. So talent pool is the problem that we have. We'll to solve, but I believe the advanced manufacturing will come back quite a bit, and I think it'll be, if you fast forward 10, 20 years, I think there'll be a lot of semi business and associated business where, PCBA business, those kind of businesses will flourish. So I would say as a country, as a state, or probably a city, we should gear towards, and we are beautifully placed, right? San Jose State and Santa Clara University and Stanford and Berkeley all around. I think we have a talent pool that we can siphon towards more of an engineering and actually building products, the manufacturing side, advanced manufacturing more, robotics and all that. So I think that's a enormous space that will grow. And that is happening, John, whether we want it or not, that space will grow. The other side, I would say, the chemical engineering, the battery technology, because solar and battery will take over. I mean, the gas will continuously decline. So that's another one that actually, it's sad to see Tesla move away, but that's another industry that we have to focus on. If we can attract some talent to come to our area, that's the area that's going to flourish.
Thank you. Derek, I think it's time you dust off ready and get it going again.
Hey, Ed, this is Monique. Derek had to step away for a quick second. Thank you, Deb. Thank you so much. And Garrett, Herbert, I see you're on the call. Thank you both so much. Did anyone else have any last questions to ask Deb? Again, you can unmute yourself if you comments, questions.
It's Kat again. This is a personal fascination for me. I just want to be clear, while the food bank definitely relies on freight, we don't have experts. I just love reading about it. One of the other things I had read about was a shortage of chassis. Do you know much about that situation, or how it might be exacerbating the problem currently? Because I understand some of the containers are going like onto the ground and then they just kind of sit there forever. So they're taken out of the rotation.
I don't know, Kat, never heard about that chassis problem. So you're saying that there's a chassis problem of the vehicle itself?
Yeah, I think so. And this may have something to do with something in the chat I'm just seeing from the long chat. Oh, it's from Ed to me. That's why you all can't see it, but it's about maybe a limitation on the types of trucks that can be used. So anyway, was just curious. Thanks so much.
Oh, this is, I mean, you guys are putting me through a test. I should get a degree after this. So.
No, this is fascinating. I feel like I learned something new about it every time I read or talk about it.
No, I think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, we forewarned you about the chatty group here. So this is all, yeah. Give you the heads
No,
up.
I mean, it's rarely you see people with variety of background and wisdom and knowledge. So it's okay. As long as it's not politics and no religion, I'm okay to get if that's my point of view.
All right. Floor is open for any additional questions. All right, Monique, I know we're a little ahead of schedule, but Monique, are we at the point of the 10-second warning?
Mhm.
Speak now or
We
forever.
are.
All right. Give everybody a few more seconds to pipe in. Otherwise, we'll give folks some minutes back. All right. With that, Deb, thank you so much for joining us. I know we cannot give you a round of applause in the traditional way, but whatever the Zoom equivalent is, yes, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
and taking your time today. Again, to everybody that is here, we did record the session and we will distribute this to the membership. And we as an organization, Deb, look forward to working with you and your team, Santa Clara and Deloitte, on these issues as they continue. So thank you all for joining us. And I believe we will go ahead and give everybody 16 minutes back this morning. So thank you all so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's a privilege. Bye.